Hello, you wonderful people. I am Justin, also known as the Cinemaverick, and today I'm going to be talking about my first entry in my PT Ander-Thon, in which I look at the films, short films and the feature films of Paul Thomas Anderson in anticipation of Inherent Vice from this year. Now, today I'm going to be talking about from 1988. It's called The Dirk Diggler Story. It's a short film. As I mentioned in the last episode, he made it as part of a senior honors project, like a independent study project. And he shot it on video, and he based it on a documentary he saw about a porn star, an actual porn star named John Holmes. And the name of the documentary was Exhausted. And he very much modeled it after that. And he had a circle of friends. He cast one of them, Michael Stein, as Dirk Diggler. And really, this film was sort of like a proving ground for Anderson. Really tested his ability. I mean, before this movie, he had made a couple of movies throughout his life, but nothing as serious as this, and more like kind of goofy short films, kind of guerrilla filmmaking. And here was a real chance to really show himself as a filmmaker. And he started with this movie, which was sort of a mockumentary, very much in the mode of This Is Spinal Tap. And like This Is Spinal Tap, it not just has the funny moments, but it also has these really, these moments where reality starts to seep in. So we get a lot of interviews in this movie with Dirk's co-stars. I mean, it really is the story about Dirk Diggler, his rise to fame and power, and his eventual descent, unfortunately, into self-destruction. So we get many interviews with a lot of his co-stars and with a director he worked with very frequently. So this film was shot on video, as I said, and there's definitely the production values are not what you might you're used to seeing. Very low production values, but in some ways that works very well because this is a movie about the porn industry. And what I really like about this movie is it takes the porn industry very, very seriously. It really does treat it as just another business. And I think we'll see this expanded upon, I'm guessing, when we get to Boogie Nights, because that has a much longer running time and much better production values than this movie. But yeah, this world, this porn industry has a real, it has its own internal logic, it has its own rules. And like I said, I think Anderson takes it very seriously, and the characters take it very seriously. They take it, it's another profession, it's a day on the job. Which of course, part of what makes this movie so funny is because these characters take it so seriously, and I mean, at one point you have, in anticipation of this one scene, you have the director, Jack Horner, taking his cast and his crew, forming a prayer circle, and praying to God to protect them from, quote, the crime of premature ejaculation. So you have that great moment, and but you know, it's very funny, but at the same time, yeah, you could kind of see how that would be a problem for this kind of business. So it does have this kind of reality to it, even as it seems a little bit exaggerated. The other thing I really like about this movie is it's a very familiar story. It's a story we've seen so many times about, you know, a young man or young woman who, you know, kind of like comes from nowhere, amasses this great amount of power and fame, and then, you know, then just starts descending, you know, once they get to the top, they find it hard to stay there, and, you know, and they descend into drugs or, you know, so it's very unfortunate. But here, it's that story, but it's against the background of the porn industry. So what I like about it is it's making this industry, that we probably write off, honestly, and really making it somewhat familiar. So in that way, it's very much like, even though it is about the porn industry, it's also kind of a commentary on the film industry, because these are very similar stories. And I think another thing I really like is this, the way it does make fun of these characters, but it's very gentle. It doesn't condescend. You know, there's these funny moments, but they're very grounded in a kind of reality. That the film doesn't necessarily feel perfect, and nor should it. It's a first film and a first short film, and Anderson was still in high school when he made it, so you can tell he still has some room to grow, which is really nice to see. But that said, I think uh, the like I said, he does treat the subject very, very seriously, and he uh, doesn't doesn't just make the whole thing a joke. There's a real sense of pathos to this movie, and a sense of loss to this man's death, because we learn that he unfortunately died of a drug overdose. Um, the acting isn't where it should be, and to be fair, these guys are playing porn stars, and the acting isn't supposed to be good, but even some of the moments that I think are supposed to be taken more seriously, particularly characters who will break down because they get so emotionally distraught after Dirk dies, I think that's supposed to be more convincing, and I'm not sure that really worked for me as well. Um, and the other thing is, it is very funny, but it's maybe not as funny as it thinks it is. It has some very broad, humorous moments that I don't think that I think were maybe funny to Anderson, but I'm not sure not sure they're really they're kind of lame in some ways. I mean, some of the titles that he comes up with are pretty funny for the different porn movies that Dirk was in. So, but there is there's an Ed Wood kind of quality to Dirk Diggler, because he's not necessarily talented, but he has this drive. He believes he can do these things, and he goes for it, even when he's completely out of his depth. And this movie was actually made before Ed Wood, but I think the story of Ed Wood is in some. I wonder if that was in some way an inspiration for this, because we do see some of the other funny moments where Dirk tries to pursue a music career, and he sings this really cheesy song, and he's talking to I guess the producer about taking the vocals up and the bass all the way down, and the producer's kind of looking at him and being like, well, we can take the bass, it's going to sound terrible, but so there's definitely a sense of Dirk being very much out of his depth, but acting like he knows what he's talking about. And there's something very funny about that, but kind of admirable, because here's a guy who really goes for it. The other thing we see is his very short-lived television career, and the footage we get of the show he was on is just him karate chopping and karate kicking the air and flailing around, and it's very it's very pathetic, but also kind of sad. uh, and I think one of the things I really love about Anderson as a filmmaker, that I've seen especially in There Will Be Blood and The Master, is the way he melds sadness and humor, and to create these really blackly comedic moments. Um, I think there's one of the last lines in the film is one of Dirk's co-stars, whose name is Candy Kane. She says, "Well, at least he'll have his legacy on video," and that's, I think she intends it as very genuine, and there's something about like this man's legacy, this man's life being, he'll be defined by these really cheesy porn movies, which is, you know, is a little bit sad, but depending on how you look at it, depending on how the people in his industry look at it, maybe they see it very differently from everyone else. So it's kind of sad, but also kind of funny, um, and I think we'll see that in a lot of his later films as well. So I do recommend this film. I'd probably give it like a 3 out of 4 stars, because I especially recommend it if you're a completist as I am. It didn't really launch his career necessarily. That we'll actually wait for his next movie. That will be the next one that I do, which is called Cigarettes and Coffee from 1993. That really got his film career going. This was sort of a proving ground for him. He did try to distribute it, but I don't think he was very successful at that. There's actually a funny story about him running down the director, Alan Parker, and giving him a copy, which was extremely ballsy, and Alan Parker had no idea who this guy was. but apparently Alan Parker watched it. I don't necessarily think he had anything to do with getting his career going, but it still it showed a I think that's a good story because it really shows like this guy was had the same kind of drive I think that maybe Dirk Diggler had, except the difference is Anderson is a man with a lot of talent, and I think we'll see that as we go along. So yeah, that's my review of the Dirk Diggler story. Like I said, I do recommend it, and I'll see you next time for a review of Cigarettes and Coffee, which was his really successful short film, and a lot more professional, much better production value, and with some professional actors. So that'll be a lot of fun. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.